Hello everybody and welcome back to How to Build a Blog with Laravel. I'm your host J.A. Curtis and you guys can call me Alex. And in this video we're going to move on into part 34 of our series where we start looking at building a tagging system for our blog. Okay, so we've been working on our blog for a while. We just finished our categories, and in the categories we learned about relationship models with our databases. We learned how to take two different tables and have them talk to each other and basically connect them together using a one-to-many or a one-to-one relationship. So we learned both of that with categories in the last video, and this video is about an all-new relationship model called many-to-many relationships. Okay, so that's what we're going to use to build our tags. I'll show you a little bit more in a minute, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back guys. So, like I mentioned, we're working on the tagging model. But before we get too started on tagging or working with the tags, we need to learn about many-to-many relationships, okay? So there's many different types of relationships you can use with relational databases like this, like MySQL and Postgres and stuff like that. And we've already learned the one-to-many relationship. We learned the one-to-one relationship, which are both very, very similar. We learned how to make Laravel work with those types of relationships to make it super easy. So that's what our categories entailed. Now it's time to move on. We're doing tags, and our tags are going to have many posts attached to them, and then the posts are going to have more than one tag potentially attached to them. Okay, so this is what we call a many-to-many relationship. And let's go ahead and just take a look at it. Now, for those of you guys that are just tuning in, you may have never watched my videos before. If you enjoy the content in this video, please subscribe or consider going back to looking at the previous, some of the previous videos. In this series, we've gone from absolute beginner, someone that's never learned Laravel before, and we've moved on up and learned everything there is to learn about the basics of Laravel. So we've gone into really good depth. So if you enjoy this teaching styles, please give it a thumbs up in this video and be sure to subscribe and watch the other videos or go back and watch this series, okay? Thanks a bunch for everyone tuning in. Love the support. Now let's dive into the video for today. Okay, so what I wanted to work on today is obviously this tagging method like we see here. So this is a basic blog system you might be familiar with. You know, we've got our title and our date, and then it looks like the author on here, which we don't have set up yet. We've got our blog post, and then we can actually add these little tags to the bottom of the blog post. And this is what I want to create for our system. Now the question is, how do you do this? Because it's going to be slightly different than what we did with categories. With categories, we only selected one category that was attached to that post, okay? Categories could be attached to more than one post, but the post could only have one category, okay? So we learned how to do that in the last video. It worked a little bit like this. Basically, we had our model here, or our table in our database, our post table. We have a column for our title, a column for our content. Then we added this other column over here for our category ID. So if we look at trying to do this with tags, we're going to see that there's a problem. First off, we added another column over here for tag ID, and we try to link them to a table for called tags, which is going to be kind of how we did the categories. You can see that it does work if we're only tagging one tag to a post, right? We have our tag ID column here. We have the ID number for the tag that we want to be associated with that post, and it links to the appropriate tag in the tags database table, right? So all that makes sense. That's how we did categories. However, you might be wondering, how do I link to more than one tag, right? I went ahead and made this little meme for you guys because I thought it'd be funny. But how do you link to more than one tag? You can see that the problem with the model we were just working with is that it really only works when you're linking to one other thing. Okay, so how do you do something where there are the post could have a whole bunch? You don't know if it's 100 tags that's associated with it or just one tag. How do you work with that type of variable information? And on the flip side, you still want the tags to link to all the posts, and they might only link to one post or 100 posts, right? And that's where this new relationship idea comes in. It's called many-to-many relationship, okay? That's what we're gonna be working on in this video, is how to make not only how to understand many-to-many relationships, but also how to make them work in Laravel to make it super easy to work with, okay? So the many-to-many relationship is a very powerful relationship concept that you're going to be doing on any sort of project that you work on after you get through this series, okay? Well, it's a very important one to understand. So let's take a look kind of theoretically how it works, and then we'll dive into actually how to make it work with Laravel, okay, guys? So first things first, we've got I'm kind of picking up where we left off here. So we've got our table here for our posts. It's got our title, our content, tag ID, and then we've got our tags over here on the right. So you might wonder, this is actually how I used to do it before I understood this. This is years and years and years ago when I was first doing PHP. I didn't have a framework. I didn't have anything like that. I was just doing raw PHP code, everything myself, and I didn't understand how relational databases work. I had this great idea, and many of you guys might have thought of the same thing. Okay, so we've got our tag ID here for number 3. Obviously, it links to the Laravel tag. And then post number 2 has a tag ID for 1, which links to the marketing. We kind of discussed that in the previous, earlier. And so I thought, well, let's just make a second column. We'll call it tag ID 2, right? And then I can just add, if I want the first post to have 2 tags, I just add, the ID number for the first tag and the ID number for the second tag. This one will link to Laravel, and then this one will link to marketing. And now I have a post that has both the marketing and the Laravel tags, right? And then if I'm only using one tag, like here in the second post, I just leave it blank and stuff like that. And then here I can link up 2 tags, 4 and 3 and 2 and 3 for these posts respectively if I want to get those tags. So this is kind of the idea I had back when I first started. And I've actually seen lots of other people go through the same idea and try to do the same thing before. So I know it's not a completely foreign concept for you guys. So if you may have tried this before, this is not the way to do this. But it does technically work. It's just a pain in the butt and not effective or efficient at all, okay? So don't do this, but you may have had this idea before where you could just add, a whole bunch of columns here for tag ID 3, and then you just leave them blank if you're not using them. There's a few problems with this method, though. In addition to it just being the wrong idea, you now have to deal with what if there's a blank, if you got these null values in these columns. There's not a really good way to count this. You've got to, in order to count how many posts are in use the marketing tag, for example, you now have to search, 3, 4, however many columns you decided to make, and then add those all up, which add tons of database requests, not effective at all. All these would need to be indexed, which just adds a lot of overhead to your database. There's many, many reasons why this just wouldn't work. It's gonna add up a lot of time, take up a lot of server space. It's just ineffective. Not to mention you have a cap on how many you can use, right? You can't just be making columns, database columns on the fly. So maybe you'll decide, okay, well, I'm gonna make 10 columns, and then that limits you to only 10 posts, right? It's just ineffective, or 10 tags. Ineffective, not the way to do it. So we need a new solution. All right, and that's what I want to show you. We need an intermediary. So we call this an intermediary table that helps us accomplish this task and avoid all of these problems. Now, for those of you guys that have a lot of viewers that are outside the United States, maybe English isn't your first language, so you may not know what an intermediary is. Well, here in the United States, we are very sensitive to our feelings. I'm making fun of the US here, but as an American, I feel like I can do that. So we're very sensitive to our feelings. We always have to deal with these intermediaries. If you go to work, you offend someone at work, we have a human resources person that comes in and tries to solve the dispute that 2 people might be having with each other, and you can kind of see that here. You got 2 angry people, someone in the middle trying to they're the intermediary that is, we got both the angry people here and then the happy intermediary that's trying to solve the problem, right? And then they come in, they make the day, wonderful. And so this is something that we have, the idea of an intermediary is kind of this. If you're filing for a divorce. You and your wife hate each other, don't get along. You need to decide who gets what. You bring in a mediator or an intermediary who's just a partial third party, and they're just there to kind of help everyone stay on task, try to prevent people from getting in disputes, and just make everything run really smoothly, and just kind of, be in the middle so that everything works smoothly. That's what an intermediary is, okay? And so what we need to do is create an intermediary to basically bridge the gap between our two models here. So here we've got our post model, we've got our tags model. We've been seeing these tables before, and what I want to show you is how we can connect these effectively, okay? So the first thing I want to do is, you can see here that we've got these two posts. They don't get along. How do they talk to each other? How do they, how do we get posts to link to lots of tags and tags to link to lots of posts? Well, we do it by creating a third table. And this table is called an intermediary table, okay? So what this intermediary table does is obviously helps these two things, helps this whole thing work, and solves all the problems that we've talked about up to this point. So the way it kind of works is basically you're going to have this empty table. It's this third table, okay? So we've got our tags table. It's going to store all of our tags. We've got our post table, obviously storing all of our posts. And we can get rid of the tag ID because we don't need that here. And then we've just got this third table that's going to bridge the gap. Okay, so the intermediary table is going to basically have a row indicating a link between a post and a tag. Okay, so in this case, as you can see here, we've got our table called tag posts has a column for tag ID and a column for post ID. Okay. We don't actually add anything to the posts table. The post table just contains the basic information, the title, the content, whatever other stuff you might have added. It doesn't need it doesn't need to link to a foreign key within the post table itself. And same with the tags table. It doesn't need to link to a post directly. It just needs to contain the basic information about the tags. What links to everything is this third intermediary table called tag post. Okay, and we'll talk more about the naming of this in a second, but the idea here is that every time we want to create a link between a post and a tag, we just create a new row in this table. So here we created our first row, and we've said that tag ID of number 2 belongs to post ID of number 1. Okay, so this creates a link where now this post here, this first post, has a tag associated with it of clickbait. Okay, we've created this link between posts and tag and clickbait tag. We've created this link here with the help of this third intermediary table. Okay, so that's the way that this many-to-many relationship is going to work. So here you can see we've got our next. We just created another relationship here. We've got our tag post added another row. This time we're linking the second post to the fourth tag. Okay, so now this has the best of tag associated with it. And if we add another one here, we can actually now link multiple tags. Okay, so we're still going to use the post ID of number 2. You can see that these both link to number 2. But now this one post is going to have links to both the third tag and the fourth tag. Okay, because up here, post ID number 2, which is this post, linked to the best of tag. And now we added another one, post ID number 2, links to the third tag right here, Laravel. Okay, so that's kind of the way this works. You can see that we could keep adding an infinite number of tags. We could add one tag. We could link our post, we could link one tag to it. We can link 100 tags to it. If we wanted to link 100 tags, we would just create 100 rows in this database that would all link. The post ID would all link to the same number 2 post, and then the tag ID would link to different tags that we wanted, to link. So this scales infinitely, and then this also makes it highly searchable. Okay, so it makes it a lot more effective and a lot more efficient than what we were seeing before. And then just kind of a final example here. You can see I added another tag here. So we've got the fourth tag. So best of is also associated now with the fourth post ID. Okay, so now you can see that the tag number 4, this best of tag, actually has 2 links to it. Okay, so it's associated to many posts, both post number 2 and post number 4. On the flip side, you can see that our post number 2 is linked to many tags, okay? So it's linked to tag number 4 and tag number 3. So we can create a very, very complex relationship here with the help of this third intermediary table, all right? So that's kind of the way that all of these many-to-many relationships work. You might be wondering though, how do I now apply this to Laravel? Well, let me show you. It's actually really, really easy. It's gonna work with the help of this belongsToMany method, okay? So we're gonna add this belongsToMany method into our model, and then that model is it's gonna be very similar to how we did the has one and then belongs to, if you remember that, how we kind of set up those models in the previous video. We're gonna do the exact same thing here with the help of this belongsToMany method inside of our model, okay? So we're gonna go into the model, we're gonna attach this belongsToMany method and tells the tag model that it belongs to many posts, and then we're going to go into the post model and say it belongs to many tags. And then this is going to create this inverse relationship here where they can each link to many of each other, okay? So let's take a look quick at the syntax for this method. You need to understand it really well, and then we'll look at applying it into our existing project. So we've got our belongsToMany method, and the first parameter that we need to add to this method that is required is the name of our model that we want to link to, okay? So if we're writing this belongsToMany method inside of our posts model, then that means we want to link to the tags model, right? Okay, so in this case, we would do app/tag because that would link to the tag model. Now in the example I've got here, it's saying that it belongs to many posts, and we've linked to the model, the location for the post model. Okay, so this belongsToMany would probably exist inside the tags, inside the tag model, and we're saying that a tag belongs to many posts, and then you would just reverse it when you went into the post model, and you'd say the post model belongs to many app/tag. Okay, so that's kind of how this works. This is required. This is the only parameter that's required. So if you want to set up this relationship and you follow all the other parameters by default, then you can just set it up like this: belongsToMany, and then the model that you want it to link to. Okay, so that is required. Now the second parameter that you could have is basically you can customize the table name for the intermediary table. Okay, Laravel expects this intermediary table, and so it also assumes a certain name structure for that table. Okay, so for example, the way that Laravel sets up the naming structure, it expects the name of the two models in alphabetical order. So in the case of posts and tag, the post model and the tag model, our intermediary table will be post_tag, okay? And that the reason for that is because that's in alphabetical order. So post, the P in post, comes before in the alphabet, before tag, the T in tag, okay? So that's alphabetical order. So we just put post_tag, it's the name of the two models in alphabetical order, okay? Let's say we were doing something like we were linking a user to many roles, okay? So you have user and role. Those are the two of them. Well, in that case, the role becomes the R in role comes before in the alphabet before U, obviously. And so it'd be role_user. Okay, that's kind of the structure that it would work. If you are in another language and you want to customize that, you might want to manually tell it the name of the table, in which case you can define it here, okay? So this is the intermediary table, and this, I do suggest doing this just in case you screw up. Sometimes people will mess up, and they'll just kind of mess up the naming structure. Maybe they do tag post instead of post tag or something like that. Laravel's expecting post tag, and you accidentally do tag post. That's why it's kind of a good idea maybe to add the intermediary table in there just to make sure Laravel knows what to look for. Obviously, if you leave it out, it'll still work, and it will just assume that you have a table with that structure that I mentioned, okay? So you have the name of the two models, and then there'll be an alphabetical order with underscore in between, okay? That's what it's expecting. If you follow that structure, then you don't need to add anything here. If you want to kind of just double check and make sure it's going to the right place, or you want to, you know, break out of that structure, then you can customize it here with this parameter, okay? Now, the next two parameters are going to be basically defining the column names in your models, okay? So basically, we have the column name for the current model, post ID, and then the column name for the joining model, in this case, tag ID. All right, so I actually messed this up a little bit because theoretically this would be the tags. This would be the tag model that we're writing this in because we're linking to the post model. Okay, you wouldn't. So that would mean that this is the tag model. So these should actually be flip-flopped. But basically, you want to write the column name for the current model in here. The default structure is going to be the model name underscore ID. And so if you're writing this in the tag model, it's automatically going to be looking for tag underscore ID. And then if you're joining it to the post model, it'll look for post underscore ID. Okay, so you would want to do tag underscore ID here, post underscore ID here, and that just tells it, the first one tells it, hey, what's the column for the foreign key for my for the model that I'm currently in, and then the second one is which one is the one you want me to link to, okay? So this one over here should correspond with the model over here, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Remember that these are the ID numbers in your database. Your database will probably have just 2 columns. Well, it'll probably have 4 columns, or 5 columns. You'll probably have your ID number, and then you'll like just the primary ID for that one table. Then you're going to have the foreign key in one column for one of the models, the foreign key for the other model in another column, and then you'll have a created at and updated at in the other columns. Okay, so what we're going to do here is you can define these if they're slightly different. So again, if you're breaking outside that convention, or you just want to make sure that everything's going to the right place, you can define these, but they're completely optional. All right. So that's basically the structure for all of this, you know, for this model. So if you're using belongsToMany, that is how you would do it. You'll have your, you're going to link to the model, which is required right here. And then all the rest of these are optional, but I do suggest you add the intermediary table in there just in case you mess up. Not required. And then you'll have the column name for the current model, column name for the joining model. And that's basically how you set up this relationship. So let me show you real quick what it would actually look like inside of the model. So here you can see inside Laravel, we have, we're inside of our post model here. So this is class post extends model. So this is our post model. And we want to link tags to our posts, right? So we're going to create a function, public function tags. That's going to link all of our tags. That's how we're going to actually grab the tags out of, you know, when we're inside of our views and stuff like that. And this is very similar to what we did with categories. Remember, we created a method for it, and then we said has many or has one categories. That's what we're going to be doing here. So the difference here is instead, we're just going to say return this belongsToMany app/tag. Okay, so we just defined that the post model has many tags. Okay, and on the flip side, we have to do the inverse of that, the opposite. And so over here, we've got our tag model, class tag extends model, and we've got now our posts because we're linking posts to tags, and we're saying return this belongsToMany app/post. Okay, so app/post links to here, app/tag links to here. Both of these belong to many, okay? So it's creating many to many relationships. And that allows us to do, you know, exactly what we were wanting to do. All right, so next time, guys, on this video, I am gonna take you through actually implementing what we learned in this video into our project. And that'll be coming up in, if you're watching this live, basically it'll be up in about 2 or 3 hours. If not, then obviously it should be available right away. So in the next video, we're going to actually start implementing this into our projects. I'll show you how to put it together. We need to first of all create our tag model. That's going to be important. And then because we don't have a tag model yet, and we'll have some basic CRUD for our tags. You guys should be getting good at that. You're seeing that we do a lot of the same stuff over and over again. We have to create this CRUD for almost everything. So we're going to do some tag CRUD, and then we're going to actually implement them together using the many-to-many relationships, okay? So that's what's happening in the next video. Be sure to stay tuned. Subscribe if you guys haven't subscribed. Thanks so much for the support, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.